folks, welcome back. Another Tech Tip Tuesday video in our summer series here, and we just want to remind everybody about our giveaway. So we've got one winner who's going to get a set of Joey's bowstrings and cables for their setup, whatever bow that happens to be. And then one winner is going to get their pick of broadheads from Vantage Point Archery. Make sure you head on over, check both of them out. Make sure you follow them on Instagram. All that stuff is in the description. And then make sure you like and comment on every single one of these videos in this series. So if you're just getting in on this series, make sure you go back and watch the other episodes, and then watch every episode after this through the end of September. Everybody that has liked and commented on the videos, as well as subscribed to our channel, followed us on Instagram, followed VPA and Joey's Bowstrings on Instagram, or they're going to be entered to win. So make sure you don't miss a single episode. Thanks, guys.
Hey everyone, welcome to another video in our Tech Tip series running this summer on everything archery. Today we're gonna go over just basic fundamentals to shooting. So really, if you're brand new to shooting, you're gonna love this video because it's gonna give you everything that you need to know on how to just get that basic form going and everything like that. And you know, whether you're brand new to shooting or you've been shooting a while, you know that consistency is key to shooting. All right, so you wanna make sure that you're doing everything as possible the exact same way. You want to make sure you have a good foundation and really good form, and that it's consistent for every time that you're shooting. What I like to do is start from the ground and then work my way up as I'm setting in position or that I'm getting ready to shoot, and making sure that everything is set. So the first thing you're going to do is with your feet. So you want to stand essentially perpendicular to the target. So if my target is down here, I'm standing facing with my non-dominant shoulder. So if I'm right-handed, my left shoulder is going to be pointed towards the target. If I'm left-handed, my right shoulder would be pointed down towards the target. Now for me personally, I like to have my feet just at shoulder width apart and level, okay? So you can go a little bit wider, you can go a little bit narrower depending on what's comfortable for you. And then also you can cock your foot either to the out or to the inside, whatever you want to do to make sure that you're stable and that your footing is solid, right?
I'm going to need you to level this ground.
Yeah, okay. Next thing is you don't want to lock your knees, all right? You want to make sure that you have a little slight bend in your knees and that you're not locking them out, because if you lock them out, you could pass out and then you're going to fall. All right, and that would not be good. All right, so you want to make sure you have a little bit of a bend in your knees. Hips are going to be straight. You're not going to be bending over at the waist, backwards or forward. You don't want to be leaning back like this, especially when you go to draw your bow. If you're doing that, your bow weight is too heavy and you need to back it down. So then that goes up to actually gripping the bow, right? So now we need to grab the bow with our hand. So once again, if I'm right-handed, I'm gonna be grabbing it with my left hand, all right? And what I don't wanna do is grab it super tight like what Garrett's doing right here. That is wrong, all right? You wanna have a nice loose grip so you're not torquing on the bow. When you have a tight grip like that, you're gonna be torquing it to the left or the right, depending on what you're doing. For the grip itself, I like to take the V of my hand, like so, and put that grip and that riser right here in the crease of my hand, just like so. One thing you can see, so you want to have a little riser like that. I typically take off, if I have a big grip on, I take it off, all right? Because I want a minimal amount of contact here, because the more contact you have, the more chance you have to torque it, and the more chance you have to not be set in the same position every time. The other thing that I do is, you can see it, like I took a tennis racket wrap and wrapped it just to give myself a little bit extra grip in my hand. You know, we're out here, Virginia, it's June, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, it's already 85 degrees out. We're already sweating, if you can't see. So your hand will slip on that grip, and that will cause your shots to be off as well. And so you want to have a little bit of grip there. You know, you're hunting in September. If you got one of those early season tags, you're going to be out there sweating. It's going to be hot. You want to make sure that your grip is not going to slip at all. Another thing that you can do is, like what I did for my wife's bow, and I'm thinking about doing it for mine, is I took some skateboard tape and I cut a little strip, and I put a little strip of skateboard tape right here, just to give that little, once your hand is in there, it's locked in there, and it's not gonna go anywhere. All right, so now we got my grip set, and then into the release, right? So most of everybody's gonna be using a strap release like this. Once again, on the release video, you'll see, I suggest you always use a buckle. I don't like the Velcro straps at all. A buckle is what I prefer, and that's so I can set it in the same position every time. With a Velcro strap, you're gonna be adjusting it differently every time, and you're gonna be inconsistent. This will help you be consistent in where that release is at, and it's making sure it's in the same place every time. So once you hook onto your bow with your release, you're gonna go into the draw, right? And so what I like to do is I like to have my arm already up. I don't come up with a draw like that. I'm not coming from the sky and down like this and drawing. If you're doing that type of stuff, typically your weight is too heavy and you need to back off the bow weight. You should be able to just have a nice smooth draw holding the bow straight up. Like that.
The other issue is in a hunting situation, the more movement you have, the more likely you're gonna get picked off by a deer.
Yes. Yeah. You want to make sure that your bow is straight up and that it's just a smooth draw straight back to your anchor spot, like so. All right. One thing you want to make sure that you're doing with your draw arm is this elbow is nice up and high. All right. It'll help you get back there and lock in. So you'll see that elbow is nice and high, coming in, locking in for the draw. So this takes us up, all right, with that grip, right? With your grip arm or your non-dominant arm, you want to make sure there's like maybe a slight bend in your elbow. All right, you don't want to be locked fully out like this. What you're gonna do if you do that is you're gonna slap your arm with the bowstring when you go to shoot. So you do want to make sure there's a slight bend in the elbow, a little bit. If you're fully extended out, that your draw length is too long and you need to go to a local shop and get it shortened up a little bit. If you're super cramped and your elbow is bent really bad, then your bow length is too short and you need to go and get it extended out. So coming up, you want to make sure that your shoulder is not rolled either way. Once again, it needs to be comfortable. You should be able to sit there at full draw for a couple minutes and not get super fatigued or feel like you're stretched out in a certain way and torqued on it. Now we're gonna go into our anchor point, all right? So we got our head and our anchor point, all right? So we notice with the head, we're just naturally coming down and we're putting the tip of the string on our nose, all right? Now, you have multiple anchor spots that you can have. Some people use what's called a kisser button, and they'll put a kisser button right here where the corner of their lip is gonna be, all right, to give them a reference point. It's all about consistency and making sure you're doing the right thing, the same thing every time. If you're brand new to archery, I would suggest that you use a kisser button. Whether you use a kisser button here at the corner of your mouth, or you use a kisser button for your nose that makes sure your tip of your nose is coming down on that spot every time the same. The head, I'm not super cocked-eyed over, right? Trying to look through my peep. It's a natural position where I come down, lay the tip of the string or tip my nose on the string, and I can look through the peep sight. I'm not having to torque my head one way or another to be able to look through my peep. If you were having to do that, your setup is wrong and you need to go to your local bow shop and get it corrected. So once again, you can see his head just comes naturally down. He likes to, and I do the same thing. I raise my head and I lock it into position on my anchor point. All right, so your anchor point with your release hand, right? So I like to take the web of the V notch, just like I did on my grip, the V notch of my dominant hand, and lock it into my jaw bone right here, the corner of my jaw, and lock it right in there. And just like you saw Garrett doing, he rocks his head up and comes right back down on it. Now, I know why he does that, because it's from his old rifle shooting stuff, where when you put the butt of your rifle in there, you come and bring your head down and get a nice cheek weld going. And so it's just natural habit for him because he's been shooting for so long and it carries over. And a lot of this
But
stuff,
it's part of that whole thing we've talked about with getting that routine.
yes.
So for me, every time I draw, I come back, I put that, he's talking the webbing, I do very much the same thing in the jaw with my knuckle, kind of right here by my earlobe. And then I just settle my head naturally to the string.
Yes.
The tip of my nose to the string.
Once again, repetition, consistency, and you have to figure out what works for you. I've seen some people, they take an anchor point and they take their hand like this, they come back and they lock their thumb in the back of their neck.
Right.
Like this. I've seen that done before. I'm not here to tell you which way is right and which way is wrong. You got to find out what works for you. It needs to be consistent, repeatable, so that way it's doing it the same way every time.
And I go through my little ditty of drawing it straight back, getting the anchor point, getting the nose, and then the sight.
And you'll see a lot of this stuff in archery, if you're brand new to it, it carries over into rifle shooting. I have noticed a huge improvement in my rifle shooting after shooting my bow for a lot and getting serious repetitions in there, especially in my trigger release, because I do get a little target panic, and so I punch the trigger a lot, even on my rifles. And so shooting my bow will actually help my target panic when it goes rifle shooting.
So after going through that piece with the anchor and setting your head and all that stuff, on the sight, you're gonna have the bubble. Next thing I do, level the bubble, and then do my sight alignment, sight picture. So just like with a, if you're using iron sights on a rifle, or even the iron sights on a pistol, you wanna line up your sights. So the peep and the housing of your sight, you wanna line those up, making sure that your pin, in my case I have a single pin, I'm gonna line up that pin in the center of the peep, and then aim in on the target, release the arrow.
On a lot of different sites, they have different size housings.
Yes.
And so these housings are round, and your peep is round. And so what you should be able to do is take your peep, and that housing and your sight housing should be perfectly matched up,
right,
round to round. If you see your sight inside your peep, then your peep is too big, and you need to go to a smaller size peep. If you can't see your sight at all, and you're having trouble centering it, then your peep is too small and you need to go to a bigger one. Now, benefits to a peep, a bigger peep, smaller peep, is the amount of light that gets brought in. And so typically, depending on what kind of terrain you're shooting in, what the weather conditions are like, I know a lot of people go to a bigger peep when they're in low light conditions and they think they're gonna be shooting in a lot more low light because it lets that, whatever available light you have, bring it in. But if you're brand new to shooting, just get a peep that matches your sight housing when you draw back, that you can put them perfectly on top of each other. And so like Garrett said, he's all locked in. He's got his front arm, got a good grip. He's got a slight bend. He locks into his anchor spot. He brings his head just nice, gently down, looking through that peep. He lines up his peep to his sight. He makes sure the bubble's level. So he's twisting the bow to the left or the right, make sure the bubble is level. And then he just puts his finger gently on the trigger, and he just starts a slow, steady squeeze. One thing I like to do is I bring this, when I'm trying to get my release going, is I bring this, my elbow, and I'm pinching my back. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to bring my two back muscles and bring them in together, all right? When you naturally just do that, and you bring this elbow and you're trying to push it back, it will naturally bring your hand down as well, and your finger will just naturally, boom, go off. I'm using a thumb button release this year, all right? And so same thing, I come into my anchor spot, and I'm bringing this elbow and I'm trying to push it back against the wall, right? And so as I'm going back, my hand just naturally goes, and boom, it goes off. So the way this thumb button release works is I have it in the notch of my thumb right here, all right? Consistency, doing it the same way every time. And then as I push this with my thumb is when it goes off. The reason I switched over to this year was I was starting to feel like I was getting a little bit of target panic with a regular trigger release. And so I went to this to help alleviate my target panic. So a lot of guys, they'll shoot one of these, whether it's a thumb button or it's a hinge release. they'll shoot it for target, they'll shoot it for practice, and then they'll switch over to a strap release because it's right there for hunting. I'm actually gonna try to hunt with this year, and so it's the first time I've done that, and I think it'll work out, and I think I'll be just fine. But one thing I like about that is I'm gonna be up in the tree. I'm gonna have my bow hanging there. As soon as I get in, hang my bow up, knock an arrow on there. I'm gonna pull out my thumb button. I'm gonna hook it on my D-loop and just leave it right there. And now I'm completely set. And so when that deer walks in, I'll just be able to slowly reach up, grab my bow, come down, and my release is already hooked up. I can just grab it, draw, and take a shot. So just like I was explaining with Garrett, all right, so I got my release hooked up. I like my feet just slightly shoulder width apart. Come up with my forward bow arm. Now, for me, I'm not using my wrist and everything to pull back. I got my fingers locked in to the release, just on that second index part. Got my elbow up high. I come into my anchor spot. Drop my tip of my nose just barely on the string. Line up my sight, make sure my bubble's level. And I'm just aim. Not focusing on the release. I'm focusing on aiming, but not forcing it as well. Not worrying about if I'm floating a little bit, doing the figure 8. All right, a little bit of movement is okay. Just aim, and slowly start trying to pinch your back. Like once again, just trying to pinch your back together. Bringing this elbow, trying to push it up against the wall, and boom, it just naturally goes off. It should be a surprise to you. The bow should be like, whoa, oh, okay, it went off. That is just the basic fundamentals of shooting, all right? Making sure that you're, once again, consistent, repeatable, all right? Getting that good stance, that good foundation set, and then just continue practicing, repping it out. You don't have to be shooting long distances for this. You can go up, shoot 10 yards, 15 yards, 20 yards, whatever you can do. Just get out there and get some reps in, making sure that you're doing the process right, and you're doing the process the same every time. Getting that good anchor spot. You want it to become muscle memory. That way when you get into the heated situation and you got a big elk standing out there or a big deer standing out there, you're not freaking out and you're not doing something outside of your process. It's already muscle memory. You don't have to think about it. You just pull up, aim, and shoot, and get yourself a big animal. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure to leave a comment, hit that like button, share it with a friend, and come back next week for another tech tip video, and then continue watching our whole series on everything archery. Thank you. See you next week.